Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Black Lightning. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. A lot of stuff went down in this episode. Back to the matter, you had Gravedigger versus Black Lightning, picking up like where the last episode left off with them crossing paths and everything. And obviously it's still been kind of somewhat of an even fight, but obviously, Gravedigger has an extra like layer of like, well, he has all those abilities and stuff like that. And even partway during the fight, he starts microwaving, using microwaves to basically burn Jeff. And it's interesting because Jeff was able to kind of absorb the electricity, heal himself, which I think there have been mentions of him having somewhat of a healing factor because of that, but I never knew he could necessarily activate it like that by using the because I think he's kind of works like Barry, or the sense that like he can heal rap, but I don't know maybe he's done it before. I don't remember him ever using electricity to heal himself. I mean, if I'm wrong, do correct me, but it was just interesting seeing him kind of do that, and he was able to kind of attack Gravedigger with a powerful hit, but it still wasn't enough to take him down. I mean, to be fair, he was worried about Jennifer. But even letting Gravedigger know, like, hey, we're family and everything, it still didn't stop him because he's a soldier and he believes in, because he's not going to let anyone stop him because he wholeheartedly believes in his mission. Even to the point when Jennifer's talking to him later on, because for him, he's like, oh, you think change has come? Like, basically saying this country was built off of old rich white men, and the fact of the matter is, you think just because you think of people like Martin Luther King and Obama that there were any changes to this. And Jennifer's like, yeah, it's not perfect, there's not like a whole bunch of changes, but the fact of the matter is there are some. But he's so intent on believing like, oh, Martin Luther King calling him a coward because he didn't decide to use violence. But Jennifer, because sharing those beliefs that were passed down to her by her dad, was like, the fact is he fought using his words and his belief, and that takes a lot more strength than just using your fist. So it's that type of situation. I mean, once again, depending on where you kind of fall in that line, because obviously not everyone agreed with the way Martin Luther handled things. But regardless, that was the whole situation. I thought was interesting of her, like, because he has the situation of he's jaded from history. And I think that's kind of an interesting parallel when you think about it. Obviously, Jennifer is a high school student, and that's even a thing. He's like, I'm over 100 years old. What do you know about anything? But it's like, because he's lived so long, he's grown so jaded. That's the beauty of being young. The fact of the matter is, yeah, you might come off a little naive, but you're idealistic, which obviously, there's give and take with that. So it's just an interesting parallel between someone who's so steadfast in their beliefs, believing they're on the right side of things, and someone who's very idealistic, And so I think that was kind of a neat clashing, I mean, to be fair, his coloring of the world has always been blinded because he's filled by rage by, everything that happened to him, everything that this country's built off of. And, he even talks about the fact is his plan was to basically make an independent state where the metahumans could be free, they can live their lives. But it's like, that's not freedom if you're just going to take them away without their permission, not giving them, because you even said either come with me or pay the price. And it's like, what makes you any better than the U.S. government in that regard? But it's just, you're so steadfast in believing that you're the hero of the story that everyone else is the villain, So while that's happening, there's also the whole situation with Khalil. He's going killing Markovians so he can get a high power rifle, basically, so he can use on the Pierce family. But when the time came for it, like, he was aiming to kill Jennifer, but luckily Khalil ended up fighting Painkiller, and it was and I like how it seems like Painkiller has the upper hand until Khalil takes back control and wins the fight. I don't know, it's almost like he could see the code when he started dodging all of Painkiller's blows and stuff like that. But I don't think Painkiller is dead. I think it's still there, but I think it might just, I don't know, it's hard to say whether that's like something that's like, what, because he always said it's always going to be a part of him because that chip is inside of him and that represents Painkiller, but he must have like put Painkiller into submission. But I think that's always going to be a part of him. But now I think he's got the strength, to protect the person that he cares about most, that being Jennifer, not wanting her death. He's already got his mom's death on his conscience, like he didn't want Jennifer's death on his conscience as well. So I think that strength of will is what pushed him back from doing that. Because all while this is all going down, Odell giving out the orders that basically the ASA's got to clean house. So anything related to all this needs to be wiped out. So he's sending Major Gray, sending her to try and track down the suitcase, while Commander Williams is being sent to kind of clean house with everything else. One of those stops ended up being Jace. I didn't see that coming. It's actually kind of sad because, I mean, we don't get to see it within the episode, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. But Brandon never got the answers about who his dad is, so whatever answers he had died with Jace. It makes you wonder, I don't know, it would have been a different situation if Jace wasn't where Brandon had her. Like, she was defenseless, and now with her dead, all your answers are gone. So that's why I'm just thinking, like, well, I think she'd still be at the pit if he had left her alone and not taken, but to be fair, it's a whole thing of like, well, you couldn't trust Jace either. So it's not that heartbreaking, because even Gambi was saying like all those years ago he shouldn't have saved her. So it's just a complicated thing. It's just mainly is because it's like, well, that Brandon never got the answers he wanted, so there's that side of things. But obviously, because the thing is, you can tell he actually does kind of feel bad about what he's doing, because even at one point before he was like, after Odell had given the orders, he was looking at Odell, because I think there is a part of him that felt bad about this, like we are kind of like leaving, because he knows what that means, because he knows like if Gravedigger kind of takes control, like the government's going to nuke Freeland. So I think maybe it's just that, because I think there's a part of him, like despite all that he's done, like I think the fact is there is a part of him that does kind of care. Like it is him being, he's a soldier that questions the orders, but I think there is a part of him that kind of feels bad about, being responsible for like letting so much go down, because even Lynn tried to talk to him. It's like, I have this thing, it could basically act as an anti-serum to what Gravedigger, get rid of all his other extra abilities. And she tried to talk to him. It's like, you're a metahuman, so you should understand. But for him, he's like, I'm not a metahuman. Because it's like, Lynn was like, the fact of the matter is, these kids will be taken just like you were. And he's like, I'm not a metahuman, I'm a soldier. So he doesn't look at himself in the same light, even though like, because you could tell it irritated him hearing her say that, because I guess he doesn't like to think of himself as like, oh, I'm some kid that was kidnapped and made into a weapon. It's almost like he almost wants to keep up the front of like he chose this fight, but he tries to kill her, but Lynn's already taking precautions, and she ends up she's defending herself, but she ends up killing him in the process, so. And later on when Jeff shows up, he's like, what happened here? She's like, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's not the first person Lynn's killed, but it's still not the easiest thing knowing that you did that, because at least before, the first time she killed someone sadly was in season 1 when she was defending herself. It was self-defense in this case too, but this situation, there's separation of like, that was with the gun, this is you doing it with your hands. Like granted it was powers and stuff like that, but still. You had Eve, meeting with Major Gray and learning like, all right, the suitcases with Gambit, it's like, all right, you go to Gotham City, then you'll kind of get on a shadow board. I'm like, I guess that's like the hub of where everything is. I'm wondering like why Gotham City specifically. I guess that's, because we know that's where Odell is from, but maybe that's where the hub of like whatever the shadow board is. But the fact of the matter is that Eve kind of saw through this being an attempt of like, oh, you're just trying to get rid of me because you're trying to clean house and everything, so that includes getting rid of her. So she managed to get away. Her twins, not so fortunate, but she gets word to Lala about what's going down, and luckily Henderson and some other people like 2-Bit are there to kind of fight the Markovians who are coming in, but Lala and the 100 show up and back them up, because it's like, well, like the fact of the matter is we can't trust the ASA to kind of, leave things as is, because Lala was kind of just probably going to wait for the dust to settle, obviously, and then step in, because he didn't step in before now. But hearing, what the ASA has in plan, so it's like for him, it's like this is still his home and everything, and he's not going to let some outsiders kind of, take his home. To me, hands down, that Henderson situation broke my heart. Because I didn't expect him to die. Like, there's a lot of casualties in this situation. Like, Jamila ended up dying because she was trying to get the reports out, and a Markovian ended up shooting her. I'm assuming that was like a Markovian, but the fact of the matter is she died, and it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. Because the thing is, we never found out whether or not, like, Anissa found out about that. I would assume, but probably just wasn't enough time in the episode to kind of showcase that. But the fact of the matter is, despite everything, that was someone she was intimate with for a while, so it's still kind of sucky, especially considering like her whole thing was about getting the truth out there. But obviously, the ASA was making it so that her recording didn't get out side to kind of let them know like what exactly was going down, and it was just kind of sad to see things kind of end that way, and especially for Henderson, because Henderson died protecting Jeff. because they were waiting for him because of because of Gravedigger's orders. And the fact of the matter is, Henderson like, you gotta get me out of here. He's like, I can't. Like, there's a hole in your chest, and he's like, obviously Henderson being like, I don't want this to be the end for me. And it's just kind of, because the sad thing is, because obviously, his wife's a widow now, but like, the fact of the matter is Henderson, it's like, Jeff being like, I'm sorry, like, you were my your friend. The fact is, he kind of felt like I'm sorry I let you down, and he was like, never. The fact of the matter is, and don't you like let up, Freeland. Those were kind of his final words, and it's like, I was tearing up, dude. I was like, damn, I didn't expect that, I wasn't a death I was expecting at all, so it hit me, and it was just like, jeez. And now, like, Gravedigger ended up getting through the wave that was there to protect the pit from, like, because obviously all the metas in Freeland are being held there. And just like, well, everyone's kind of full charge blasting at him, but it doesn't do anything when he's got his other ability. We can just make you go to sleep. So then you have Grace and Anissa in his way, but he just has Grace fight Anissa. And sadly, during that confrontation, like, because it was an interesting moment where, like, during the fight, like, I think her shapeshifter side kind of kicked in because she didn't fully shift. It was like her eyes shifted. She got some like animal like skin to her, and they seemed like she got claws, but she still stayed human. So I'm wondering, is that supposed to be kind of a representation of like going forward, like she could potentially like kind of go a little Vixen-ish, where she gains the attributes of what she's shifting into, while still maintaining her form to it. Like, she was kind of in an in-between state, and once again, we don't know the full extent of, like, the evolution of what she's going through because of her powers. And sadly, Anissa had to, fight with her, and because of that, Anissa ended up hurting her. So while that's going down, they've got to stop Gravedigger. The fact is that Brandon and Jennifer together, like, their powers ended up basically creating molten lava, and it ends up blasting through Gravedigger's defenses of the power he's using to defend himself, but it still wasn't enough. And because, Jeff is fueled up and pissed, like, he goes toe-to-toe with Gravedigger, and he ends up winning. Len, having his back, ends up shooting Gravedigger with the anti-serum, and it wipes away all his extra abilities. And Jeff, I was curious at the end of the day whether Jeff was going to go for the kill or not, and it turns out at the end of the day he didn't go for the kill. In fact, he wanted to actually save Gravedigger because it's like, that's family, but Len was like, no, we have to get out of here. Luckily, everyone inside the vault was safe, but the fact of the matter is, they had to get out of there before the place exploded because, hey, you had Odell. I'm surprised he even gave it 10 minutes. I'm assuming 10 minutes was just enough to make sure, like, well, to keep them all in that same spot so that it can all get wiped out, I guess, is like the main purpose of, like, if there was enough time for them to kind of get in a fight, be so deep in the pit that they don't have an opportunity to escape. Maybe it's kind of like get rid of Black Lightning and Gravedigger all at once, but luckily everyone kind of walked away from that. There was a part of me that was like, we don't know, like, the full extent of what Gravedigger's capable of. I mean, he's kind of almost got some form of immortality, so part of me, well, obviously he doesn't age, but I was wondering, like, we'll get to that in a second. But we had Odell escaping, but nope, your boy Khalil is around. He's like, did you really think I'd let you get away? And, and he tries a shutdown code, and Khalil's like, yeah, that works for Painkiller. We've never actually been officially introduced. I'm Khalil. And so Jeff shows up in time to be like, don't do this. The fact of the matter is he needs to be punished. A shot to the head would be too good for him and too easy. He needs to be pain. He needs to be locked away alone and suffer and end up dying alone. Khalil shoots him anyway, but doesn't go for the kill. He shoots his spleen just to kind of, it's like, payback for making him kill his mom. It's like, yeah, but the fact of the matter is, he'll live, because it's like, oh, his spleen doesn't really need it, but he'll live. The fact of the matter is, I mean, unless he gets an infection or something like that, then it's God's will. But whatever the case, he's yours, and Khalil walks away. So I'm curious, because I think for Khalil, he has no intent. I don't know if Khalil is ever going to come back to Freeland now. I'm curious to see because I think going forward, we could probably see him kind of being like a rogue soldier in the sense that, like, I don't know. We don't know. Maybe he's still kicking it in Freeland, but I feel like he has nothing left here. As long as, because it's like, as long as, that's still a part of him, the whole painkiller situation, as long as that's a part of him, I don't know if he'll ever, because, he can't be around Jennifer because, even in this episode alone, the painkiller was trying to kill her. So I'm curious what that means for Khalil's future. Like I said, is he just going to be out there kind of like a rogue agent, kind of doing his own thing, kind of playing like an anti-hero to a certain extent? I'd be curious to see if that ends up being, the lane that they end up going down. But some other ramifications of this, like, circling back to Grace. Grace is in a coma right now because of everything. And it's like, there's no telling, with a situation like this, how soon or how long it'll take for her to recover. Especially Lynn has no idea what her abilities are going, like how they're going to manifest themselves. So I meant to bring this up earlier. During the fight with Brandon and Jennifer, wasn't that heat vision that Gravedigger used? I mean, it might not have been straight up heat vision. It might have just been like a metahuman equivalency. I mean, there's probably metahumans with the I assumed it was metahuman abilities, but maybe just any ability in general. I mean, I guess if you got Superman or Supergirl's DNA on tap, you can get some of that. I don't know. I would assume it would just have to be like some random metahuman who has abilities similar to the heat vision. Because it didn't look the same, because his heat vision was red, whereas like obviously theirs is like a blue in this, so that, I don't know, maybe I'm most likely overthinking it, but still. But circling back to it, it's like they're gonna have to put Grace in a facility so she can be looked after. Didn't even talk about it either, but obviously Major Gray, as well as like her unit, show up at Gamby's shop, which Gamby's happy about. It's like, now all the remaining people that know about the Pierce's identity as the Black Lightning, Thunder, and Lightning, like, the fact of the matter is, this is Gamby's opportunity to wipe them all out, which he successfully does. I mean, kind of putting it into like literally every ASA person we know, with the exception of Grail, because he's a good guy in this situation now. With the exception of that, like, every person within the ASA has kind of been dealt with at this moment. I'm still surprised TC walked away from this season not knowing that Gamby was the one responsible for capturing him. I still feel like that's going to be something that's going to come back to bite Gamby, because you can't completely escape your past. But I'm assuming, once again, didn't talk about it too much, but I'm assuming Lady Eve's alive and well. I mean, because even if, I doubt, like, she's gone, so that's definitely going to be an interesting thing. Because we saw that Tobias was in Markovia, and the fact is he has plans of coming back to Freeland now that the ASA has been dealt with. The fact of the matter is, it's like, I can come and claim my crown in Freeland, but the fact of the matter is, it's going to be like a freeway fight, because you got Lala, you got Lady Eve, and now you got him. He doesn't know that Lady Eve is back, and obviously Lala's going to be looking at any opportunity to kill Tobias. Now, if Lady Eve came through on her end and actually got rid of like the codes that can shut him down, the phrases and stuff like that, if she actually came through in that end, that means Tobias has no control over him, but still killing Tobias won't be, the easiest thing. So I'm curious to see, how that whole situation ends up playing out. But sadly, we also see that Lynn is still, she made her drugs again. I'm assuming, that's part of me wondering, like, was it after the events of everything, or was she already working on it in the lab when she ended up killing Commander Williams? Like, part of me wondered if that kind of played a role in it, and that's more reason why she didn't want to talk about it. I mean, there's, because it's also the whole thing of, like, Jeff never wanted to kill anyone, and luckily he's kind of still, kept true to that, but I'm sure he still feels responsible for leaving Gravedigger there, to die and everything. We'll get to that soon enough, but yeah, it's just kind of sad to see, like, obviously she's an addict. It's not something that's going to go away so easily, but the fact of the matter is, Black Lightning is, him, Thunder, and Lightning are in court, revealing, like, the ASA being responsible for all this, like, all the stuff that went down in Freeland, and, it's like the ASA is getting disbanded and stuff like that. So there was one guy in particular in the back, I was like, are you something with, like, the shadow board or something? I was wondering if that's what that potentially was. But when he's leaving, it's revealed to be, Gravedigger, which, like I said, that's why I brought up earlier. Like, I figured, it's like, maybe because of his ability to not age, it gave him a form of immortality. Well, I think he's very indestructible in his own right, to a certain extent. But I'm wondering, like, you see that smile on his face, so I guess it's like, it's kind of out there what the government kind of did. He wasn't able to topple them, but I guess at least being able to take down the ASA makes him feel a little happy. But at the same time, it's part of me wonders, like, is it really just going to stop there? Maybe his ambition, maybe he's going to shift his ambitions or something. I'm curious to see what he does. The fact is he showed up there in person. I mean, granted, he was in disguise and everything, but part of me wonders, like, what does he plan on doing now? Does he plan on just staying dead, or is he just going to be kicking it around? And, well, I mean, granted, at that time they were in Gotham, but I'm curious to see where all that ends up taking them. Black Lightning has been renewed for a 4th season. I'm so curious to see what season 4 is going to look like after that. The aftermath of all of this, all that's been lost. It's like Henderson after the whole situation with Grace. Because the thing is, like, someone's going to have to take Henderson's spot. So it's like, I mean, whoever it is, are they going to be very in line with working with Black Lightning like Henderson? Was, but obviously once again the power struggle that's going to hit Freeland like a wrecking ball now. What else is waiting for them, like I said, with Gravedigger still around. But the fact of the matter is there's also the angle of the shadow board. Whatever that was, we still never really found out what that was or really dealt with it. So whatever that is, that's still out there to be dealt with. And I'm curious to see if that ends up being something that kind of starts. I mean, hell, for all we know, that might be something that Gravedigger connects with. Like, he joins with the Shadow Board to kind of control things from behind the scenes, maybe kind of filling the hole that was, Odell. Now that that's, I mean, maybe that has something to do with why he was there in the first place. Just making sure everything's kind of going without a hitch of like, yeah, you guys go ahead and think like this is all over because you dealt with the ASA, but or maybe he plans on going after the Shadow Board next. Maybe he's aware of their existence. I don't know. I mean, I didn't even thought about it now. Maybe he's a little happy because that means like all that stuff from that suitcase is being unencrypted. So like everything about him and all that the government's been doing will kind of become public knowledge and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure it depends on depending on who tries to keep that hush. Either way, I'm really, really curious to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into a 4th season. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.